The Methods of Deception. Episode 1, Vanishing. Somewhere on a muddy seafloor in Indonesia, a small brown octopus is deciding what to become. A predator is closing in. So the octopus flattens its body into a thin oval, tucks its arms behind it, and glides across the sand exactly like a poisonous flatfish. A moment later, faced with a different threat, it stuffs 6 of its arms down a hole and waves the other 2 in slow, banded ripples, becoming a venomous sea snake. Splay all 8 arms out stiff, and it is suddenly a lionfish bristling with spines. This one animal, the mimic octopus, has been filmed impersonating more than a dozen other creatures, and it seems to choose which disguise to wear based on which predator is threatening it. Bullied by a small territorial fish, it becomes a sea snake, which happens to be exactly what eats that fish. The mimic octopus is a magician with 100 costumes. But here is the thing. It is the exception. Almost nothing else in nature is a generalist like this. Almost every other creature picks one deception, one single trick, and spends millions of years sharpening it to a razor's edge. And when you line all those specialists up side by side, something becomes clear. Deception is not one thing. It is a toolkit, a small set of distinct methods, each one an answer to a slightly different problem. Over this series, we are going to open that toolkit and take out each method one at a time, and really turn it over in the light. And we begin with the oldest, the simplest, and the most fundamental method of all, the one that every other deception is quietly built on top of. The art of not being seen at all. Because somewhere in a rainforest right now, you are looking directly at an animal and you cannot see it. Maybe it is a leaf-tailed gecko pressed flat against a trunk, its skin frayed into fake flakes of bark. Maybe it is a stick insect that is, to your eye, simply a stick. Maybe it is a potu, a nocturnal bird perched bolt upright on a broken branch, its head tipped back so that it becomes the broken branch, right down to the grain of the dead wood. You are staring straight at it. Your eyes are working perfectly, and your brain is reporting nothing there. That is camouflage. And though it sounds like the most basic trick imaginable, it is really a whole box of separate tools, each one solving a different problem in the physics of being seen. Because a hidden animal is always betrayed by 2 things, its outline and its shadow. So evolution learned to erase both. To kill the outline, animals wear bold, high-contrast patches that shatter the body into meaningless fragments, so that a predator's eye, hunting for the smooth, continuous edge of a creature, simply cannot find one. And to kill the shadow, animals are painted darker on top and paler underneath, in precisely the gradient that cancels the shading the sun casts on a solid, rounded body, flattening them into nothing. Sharks do it. Deer do it. Countless creatures do it. And it is worth pausing on who first figured this out, because it was not a biologist. It was a painter, an artist named Abbot Thayer, who worked out the principle of counter-shading in animals more than a century ago, and then went straight to the military and tried to convince them to paint their warships the same way. That is a thread we will pull on much later in this series. Again and again, armies have simply copied, knowingly or not, tricks that nature invented first. Some animals go further and wear their surroundings directly. Decorator crabs snip off living bits of seaweed and sponge and press them onto tiny hooks on their shells. So they are not imitating the reef, they are gardening themselves into it. And here is my favorite proof that camouflage is not some finished ancient design, but a thing under constant living pressure. There is a moth, the peppered moth, that comes in a pale speckled form and a dark sooty form. For most of history, the pale form melted into pale lichen-covered bark, while the dark form stood out and got eaten. Then came the factories, and soot blackened the trees, and almost overnight the whole situation flipped. Now the dark moths vanished into the grime, and the pale ones were picked off one by one. The population turned dark, and when the air was finally cleaned and the bark grew pale again, the moths turned back. That is camouflage, tracking the pollution of an entire country in real time, generation by generation. Now, matching a fixed background is impressive. Matching a changing one live is astonishing. And nobody does it like the cuttlefish and its cousins, the octopus and squid. These animals do not wait to evolve the right pattern. They generate it on the surface of their own skin in a fraction of a second, using millions of tiny color sacs they open and close at will. Drop a cuttlefish onto a checkerboard of gravel, and it reproduces the checkerboard on its body almost instantly. And it does not stop at color. It can change its very texture, pushing up little three-dimensional bumps and flaps of skin to match the roughness of coral or rock, so it is not just the right color, it is the right shape and surface too. And here is the part that still genuinely baffles science. As far as we can tell, these animals are colorblind. Their eyes appear to have no way to see color at all, and yet they produce camouflage that matches the colors around them. How a creature matches a color it cannot see remains one of the great unsolved puzzles in all of biology. Other animals change their disguise more slowly with the seasons. The Arctic fox, the snowshoe hare, and the ptarmigan all swap a brown summer coat for a white winter one, tracking the snow. Though this ancient trick is now quietly failing in places because the snow is arriving later and melting sooner, and a hare that has turned white right on schedule can find itself a brilliant white beacon stranded on bare brown ground. A perfect disguise, worn at exactly the wrong moment. And then there is the most extreme form of hiding of all, not matching the background, but letting the background show straight through you. Transparency. On land, this is almost impossibly rare, because a body is full of opaque machinery, and above all it is full of blood, and blood is loud, bright red, screaming against a green leaf. But one creature has cracked it. The glass frog spends its days asleep on the underside of a leaf, and it turns itself see-through, its muscles and skin going clear, until only its bones and eyes remain. How? Scientists only recently found out, and the answer is almost unbelievable. When the frog settles down to sleep, it pulls nearly all of the red blood cells out of its own circulation and packs them away, hidden inside its liver, which is coated in mirror-like crystals that conceal the red. Its heart pumps an almost colorless fluid. It roughly doubles its own transparency this way, and it holds all that blood packed and still for hours, without ever forming a clot, something that would kill you or me. Wake the frog, and the blood floods back, and it turns solid again. It hides by hiding its own blood. On land, that is a near miracle. But now let me take you to the one place where transparency, and hiding in general, becomes a matter of life and death for almost everyone: the open ocean. Because everything we have talked about so far depends on having a background, a tree, a rock, a patch of snow, a leaf. Out in the open sea, hanging in the sunlit blue, there is no background. There is nothing to hide behind, nothing to match, and you can be seen from every direction at once. In the open ocean, there is quite literally nowhere to hide, and so the animals out there have been forced to invent 3 of the most extraordinary methods of invisibility on Earth. The first is transparency, and here, unlike on land, it is everywhere. Larval fish, jellyfish, and vast swarms of midwater crustaceans have gone almost completely see-through. their bodies reduced to faint glass. Some even coat themselves in microscopic anti-reflection layers to kill the last stray glints, and a few appear to recruit a film of living bacteria as part of that invisibility cloak. The second solution is for animals too solid to go clear, and it is pure genius. Become a mirror. Fish like herring and sardines have flanks covered in microscopic reflective crystals, stacked and spaced so precisely that they bounce back almost all the light striking them. And think about what a vertical mirror does in open water. From the side, a predator looking at the fish sees light reflected off its flank. But that reflected light is identical to the background water behind the fish. So the fish shows its hunter a perfect image of the ocean behind it, and effectively ceases to exist. The marine hatchetfish takes this to an extreme, flattening its body until it is just millimeters thick, and so silvery it looks like a scrap of foil. But a mirror has one fatal flaw, and it points us to the third and strangest solution of all. A silver flank can hide you from the side, but it cannot hide you from below, because down there a hunter looking up sees your dark silhouette stamped against the bright surface far above. Your own shadow gives you away. So these animals erase their silhouette with light. Along their bellies they carry rows of tiny light organs, and they glow gently downward, matching the exact brightness of the sunlight filtering from above, so that from below there is no dark shape at all, only more background glow. It is called counter-illumination, and the hatchetfish runs it alongside its mirror sides, even piping stray light from its flanks down through its body to feed those belly lights, a creature that hides in the sea by manufacturing its own faint imitation of the sun. Now, one crucial thing about this entire first method, and it is the easiest to forget. Camouflage is never only about looks. It is about behavior. A stick insect has to actually hold still and even sway gently, as if in a breeze. A perfectly patterned animal still has to choose the matching spot, orient its body the right way, and not move at the wrong moment. The finest disguise in the world fails the instant the animal behaves wrong, and that lesson will echo through every single method still to come. A fake is only ever as good as the behavior maintaining it. A decoy that behaves wrong is worse than no decoy at all. So that is vanishing. It is deception stripped down to its absolute purest form. Not the lie of pretending to be something you are not, but the deeper, quieter lie of pretending there is simply nothing here to see. But vanishing has a hard limit, because to truly disappear, you usually have to hold still and stay small and match a background that sits right behind you. And plenty of animals cannot meet those terms. They are too big, or they must move, or they live out in the open with nothing to blend into. For a long time, you might think such a creature is simply doomed to be seen. And yet, some of them are overlooked constantly, walked right past, ignored completely, even as they sit in full view in the middle of everything. Because they have discovered a second, stranger way to escape notice, one that does not require disappearing at all. It works even while a predator is staring straight at them. The trick is not to become invisible. The trick is to become boring. Next time, we meet a dead leaf that gets up and walks away, a twig that turns out to have legs, and a lizard that has spent millions of years perfecting the art of looking like garbage. That is next time, when we learn to hide in plain sight.